Leagues 5 gang, how are we doing? I hope you're all okay. It's that time of year again, the build up to Leagues 5, the teasers every day. And you might have seen by now that I worked with the Old School team and created a video revealing the Echo bosses and their rewards. And you should 100% watch that video on the official Old School Runescape channel if you haven't already. That's why I've not covered any of the teasers so far, but that's about to change and we are starting here today. Man, it feels good to be able to talk about this finally. Here we go. Today we're going to summarize the Echo bosses and their rewards. Just a quick reminder that if you're not subscribed, I'm going to be covering a lot of Leagues 5 content and Leagues 5 gameplay when it comes around, so double check if you are subscribed already. We're just going to do this in order of the video, and the first one I covered off was the desert. So we knew the Echo boss here was going to be the Cight Queen. The difficulty is set as elite, and the difficulty for all of these Echo bosses goes elite, master, and grandmaster. That's it. So there's no real like easy, medium. They're all going to be quite difficult, but to actually tackle these Echo bosses, you need to get the Echo Orb, and there's two different mechanics for how you can get those. So for the Cight Queen and for some of the bosses, it's going to be like any other drop. You've got a chance to get the Orb for that region, which will let you fight the Echo variant. But there are some bosses that give you a guaranteed Echo Orb for that region, being Hespori and Sol Heredit. We'll get onto those later. We're starting with the Cight Queen. When Doubleshine and I first had a chat and like kind of theorized what the rewards would be from these Echo bosses, I think this is the only one that we actually came close to hitting. So the Drygore Blowpipe is the desert's Echo boss reward. So the Drygore Blowpipe is just straight up better than the Toxic Blowpipe stats wise. It does lack the Venom capability and a special attack, but it makes up for that in my opinion, because it's essentially a ranged version of the Fang. The special effect of the Drygore Blowpipe rolls for accuracy twice, takes the highest result. Long story short, it's super accurate. And because of that, I can see it being useful pretty much everywhere, albeit with like reduced effectiveness. You know, it's not going to have crazy max hit potential, even if you wear like a full set of range strength armor, like Missouri or something like that. So I think it's quite obvious this is something you'll want to get to maybe even before tackling the Tombs of Amascut, because it's going to be really useful for getting through that. It's a big win for the desert because this is the region that unlocks the ability to put darts together in the first place, so they go hand in hand, which is really nice. And there's not really much more to say on this one. It is making up for the desert's obvious lack of ranged weapons until you can get to the Tombs of Amascut and maybe get lucky with a twisted bow from there or some of the Missouri armor. That's all there really is to it. Let's move on to Asgarnia. I think at first people weren't sure whether Jagex would make Slayer bosses an Echo boss, because obviously they've got a bit of a steeper requirement to get into, but they have. Because Cerberus is the Echo boss for Asgarnia, so you'll need 91 Slayer, a Hellhound task at first, but once you get the Echo Orb from Cerberus, you won't need a Slayer task anymore. And that is the same for any other Slayer boss that comes up in this video. Once you get the Orb, you can skip the Slayer task. You can just jump straight into the action, which is amazing. So Cerberus is listed as Master difficulty, which is quite interesting. I wonder what they'll do with that. Oh, and I didn't ask them any details about what the bosses do mechanics-wise, because I would like to keep an element of kind of surprise and excitement for myself when I come around to playing it, so I'm not holding any cards here. This is everything. Beating Cerberus might reward you with its Echo reward, which is the Dogsword. I genuinely love that that's what they went for this region. So the Dogsword is a combination of all of the God Swords, and this has a very obvious case use, right? It's a special attacking weapon, and the actual special attack is pretty devastating. You're going to freeze the target. The initial hit is going to benefit from the accuracy of the Armadillo Godsword and the increased damage of that. The damage from that is going to reduce the target's defense from the Bandos Godsword. You're going to heal from the Sarah Godsword effect straight away. You'll also get a delayed heal from the Ancient Godsword, which also freezes, so it's like a 2-in-1 freeze there. So it's kind of crazy, but I suppose the trade-off there is quite obvious that if you can't freeze your target, it loses some of its functionality, and there are bosses that you can't freeze. But even that aside, I think generally speaking, for anyone wanting to go down a special attacking route this year, this weapon is going to be crazy. Now, what I genuinely love is this does cut out a massive grind for people who do want to go down a kind of Godsword route. Even with boosted drop rates, getting all those Godsword shards and getting the hilts can be a pain, so this just kind of bypasses all of that. And you could make an argument to say that there'll be league tasks behind each one of the God Wars bosses anyway, so what difference does it make? But trust me when I say you can go so incredibly dry here that it's just a slog, okay? So this is fantastic. Wilderness is the next one, and people love to bash the Wilderness. I mean, I did rank it pretty low on my kind of list of overall region rankings, but this region's echo items definitely changes that. The KBD is the echo boss here, which is exciting. I mean, the boss was pretty much AFK, right? I think an echo variant here is pretty welcome. The echo version of the KBD is listed as elite difficulty, so again, on the easier side of these echo bosses. And we get 2 echo items, the Thunder Khopesh and the 1000 Dragon Ward. So the Khopesh is a really strong standalone weapon. It's actually just a better Blade of Saildor as a slashing weapon, which is insane on its own, but it also has a special effect that has a 20% chance to summon lightning in a 3x3 area of your target. The single target damage is good, but this is even better on top of it. You know, you'll get through bosses quickly, you'll shred through the Slayer tasks even quicker. I think this is just a great all-round weapon. And I say that because it's also got a special attack on top of all those other things. It costs 50% energy and you will quickly hit twice. If either of those hits are successful, you will summon a lightning bolt. And this lightning bolt is a bit different from the other one because the other one on your standard attack deals, I think, half of your main hit, while as on your special attack, it will deal the same damage that you hit. So this is just absolutely gonna nuke things. And it's the only echo reward that's a one-handed weapon, so you've actually got some opportunity to build around this and play with some other items to pair with it. The obvious choice being the second wilderness item, the 1000 Dragon Ward. Defensively, it's really strong against all styles, and offensively, it's got more strength than an Avernic Defender. That's just looking at the stats at face value. It's also got a special effect that gives you status effect immunity. This was built into the melee relic in Leagues 4, and now it's built into this shield, so places this ward is going to be good in, obviously against Dragonfire first of all. It hasn't got any negative ranged or magic stats, so you'll be able to pair a staff or crossbow with this really nicely for things like the Phantom Musper, as it should also prevent the corruption status effect there. It means you don't need boots in the Karum Slayer dungeon, there's no more stat drain before going into the God Wars dungeon, and of course anti-poison and venom has a ton of application across the entire game. Another win for the Wilderness, I think. This is an incredible item. Now, I won't get into too much detail in this video about echo item builds or, builds centered around combinations of echo items, because that is a video I already have planned. If it's out already, it will be linked at the top, and if it's not, then keep your eyes peeled for that because it will be coming very soon, and it's a banger. So let's move on to Mauritania now. Here, the Echo boss is going to be the Grotesque Guardian, so again, another Slayer boss. And while the difficulty is considered as elite, the reward here is pretty insane, in my opinion. The Gloves of the Damned is what you get from these guys, and I think this is the most, if not one of the most high-value Echo items in Leagues 5, because there's so much you can do with it. And just let me explain what it does first. It's going to double every piece of Barrow's set effects, and it's going to double the additional set effect you get when wearing an Amulet of the Damned. And you won't need to wear an Amulet of the Damned because the gloves already act as if you have one on. Now, Barrows is really easy to tackle as soon as you have some overhead prayers, and honestly, you can do it with an air staff and some very early air spells because of the elemental weakness. So getting a full set of Barrows, RNG pending, is going to be very easy this year. And the boost these gloves give to each set is crazy. And it kind of changes the way you look at some of these Barrow sets. When you look at Darox, for example, everyone always sees this low health berserker hitting really, really hard, but risking their life at the same time. This was made even better in Leagues 4 with the Berserker relic. But in this league, the Gloves of the Damned actually give the Darox set a new lease on life, a totally different way of playing with it. because the Gloves of the Damned will give the Darok set a 50% chance to recoil 30% of your damage taken. And this stacks with things like a Ring of Suffering or Ring of Recoil, Echo Boots, Vengeance, things like that. So this is the new absolute unit relic from Leagues 3, and I think this really moves Mauritania up in my standards. You know, I mentioned it in the video, but the Gloves of the Damned make the Arim set have a chance for spells to hit really hard. It gives the Carol set a 50% chance to essentially just hit twice, which is also really good for shredding through tasks. It's almost like a Mauritania blowpipe. It's like exaggeration. But like I say, I'm not going to get into the builds too much because I'm going to get into that in way more detail and talk about what regions you compare with these and what items you compare with them to really take it to another level. Fremi is up next, and this has always been the underdog region, right? Like, everyone has always said Fremi has been mid and just never really took one of the top spots for best regions. I think that's going to change this year. The Dagonoth Kings are the Echo boss here, and that's another master difficulty boss, so I imagine the added mechanics here might trip people up at first, but you do get access to the best jewelry in Leagues 5, the Amulet of the Monarchs and the Emperor Ring. These are insane, and I glazed them plenty in the official video, but hey, a little more glazing won't hurt. Take a look at those stats though. Honestly, they are literally best in slot for every style. And I think this is going to change the region picking meta entirely. I can see Fremennik being maybe the most popular, like, second picked region purely for the jewelry. This is the new Kandarin, by the way. In Leagues 4, when people were doing magic and it was like, oh, I have to pick Kandarin for the occult necklace and the tormented bracelet. Now it's Fremi because these jewelry pieces just, they're better than all of those other ones. Speaking about Kandarin, let's move on to that. The Echo boss here is the Thermonuclear Smoke Devil. So another Slayer boss, 93 Slayer and a Smoke Devil task needed to get in there. A pretty steep Slayer requirement, but worth it because this magic item I think is going to redefine what people consider the magic meta for Leagues 5. So the Echo item here is the Devil's Element, and the item itself counts as an infinite amount of elemental runes. So you'll never run out and have that annoying moment where you have to go to your rune shop, buy loads of runes, or you know, go through a whole runecrafting slog just to top them up. But the stats are also pretty good on this thing. You know, the magic attack bonus is huge. The magic strength bonus is very nice. And for its special effect, I think we all saw this coming, right? This year we had Project Rebalance and redefining weaknesses, elemental weaknesses coming in, and that is what this thing does. It doubles the effectiveness of elemental weaknesses, and that's really impressive. Now, there's a whole formula for how this damage is calculated, but essentially what you need to know is the doubling of the elemental effectiveness is gonna lead to some pretty crazy numbers. And in this footage, you can see that the Water Wave spell here just casually slaps a fire giant for 64 damage. That's just with an occult necklace and the Devil's Element. That's the only magic damage boosting stuff in that kit. And you can imagine that the numbers would be way higher with something like Arim set, Virtus Robes, Ancestral, a staff that gives magic damage, and obviously the Fremennik jewelry as well. I'll be honest, I haven't ran the numbers. I wouldn't even know how to. This isn't built into any DPS calculators yet, I don't think. But someone would run the numbers, and I'm really interested to know if when you're fighting something with a pretty prominent elemental weakness, does this combination of items with elemental weakness do more damage than a Tummakan Shadow? Because I honestly think it will. And on the other hand, that is the trade-off, isn't it? If you're fighting something that doesn't have an elemental weakness, you're kind of missing out on all of that damage. So that can feel quite bad. But I do really think this is a strong item. I did magic in the last league, so I'm trying to avoid it this time, but I might do a playthrough with this. I just hope if someone is watching this and you're thinking of doing like a max elemental magic build, then please let me know how it goes. All right, we've got Taranwin, and whenever I think of this region, I think of Mod Husky, Taranwin's biggest fan, doing whatever he can to plug the Taranwin propaganda and sell it to you as a good region. I think that the Echo item has some really strong application in this league, so let's get into it. The Echo boss is the Hunlef, and you'll only be able to get the Echo Orb from doing the Corrupted Gauntlet. So unfortunately, you're going to have to take those training wheels off, get into the Corrupted Gauntlet, and you'll have a chance to get the Echo Orb. This one's not guaranteed. And the reward is the Crystal Blessing, which allows you to use the Crystal Armor with any other melee weapon in the game. Now, I do think it's a shame that this isn't just a straight net transfer for, you know, magic weapons and ranged weapons as well. It would really bring some, you know, weapons that don't see much love back in as slightly more viable, maybe? Even with the restriction of it just applying to melee weapons though, there are some heavy hitters that really benefit from this. You know, the Soul Reaper Axe, the Scythe, and the one that I think won't take long for people to connect the dots here is the Thunder Khopesh from the Wilderness. So because the Thunder Khopesh has a 20% chance to summon lightning on successful hit, you're going to want to increase your accuracy as much as possible, and the damage of those lightning bolts is like a percentage of your first hit, so you're going to want to try and increase your base damage as much as possible with that. Crystal Armor, Thunder Khopesh, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be such a good combination. So I think if people didn't think about pairing it with something like the Thunder Khopesh, or maybe are looking at this a bit differently, you might have considered this a weak echo reward, but the other thing to remember is that the Gauntlet is really accessible. You know, you only really need some prayer levels and some combat stats and you can jump straight into it. Kind of an easy one to go for early. So I think some people are going to sleep on it, but I definitely see its application being pretty wild in some cases. All right, Kourend is next, and this one genuinely excites me a little bit because I don't think many people saw this coming, that the Echo boss here was going to be Hespori. Luckily, the Echo Orb is a guaranteed drop from Hespori, so there's no, you know, planting seeds, getting unlucky and having to wait for a seed to grow again. You'll get it. As long as you can beat Hespori, you'll get the Echo Orb. And the item you'll get from Hespori is the Nature's Reprisal. This works like a salamander, being able to attack with all three styles, magic, ranged, and melee. And I really hope people saw the potential of this item, because I think it quickly became my second favorite Echo item altogether. The stats are kind of crazy for all different attack styles, and the fact that melee can hit from a 7-tile distance is kind of wild, honestly. So one of the builds that I will be going into more detail in my Echo items build video is just like a full melee ranged build with this. You know, you've got a full set of like Bandos or Torva with the Nature's Reprisal and some really good jewelry from Fremennik, and all of a sudden you're hitting ridiculous numbers with melee from a distance. And this is really good because fewer monsters around the game are kind of immune to melee. You know, melee is widely accessible in PvM. But I think either way you look at this, it's a very flexible item, strong in all styles. You don't have to carry around lots of extra gear for any off styles if we are, you know, going down the route of locking in a combat style, that is. For all we know, Leagues 5 is the year where all combat styles are strong. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Don't look at me. I don't know. But I can see this being maybe one of the first Echo items that's obtained, because like the Gauntlet, access to Hespori comes pretty quickly. So I think with that in mind as well, this could easily be the item that snowballs you into the late game. You know, you get the Nature's Reprisal, you can use it everywhere. You can jump straight into raids with it if your stats are good enough. I suppose the main drawback is the fact that you have to charge this thing with Nature and Earth runes, but I feel like in Leagues that's quickly going to become irrelevant anyway. I just love everything about this item, but let's move on to Valmore. It's no secret I'm a big Valmore fan, and this one is gonna be tough, because not only will you have to complete the Colosseum first, which, yes, if you're experienced in the Colosseum, this is going to be a breeze with the League's power. But I think given how new this content is in the grand scheme of things, there's going to be a lot of people that haven't got into the Colosseum yet. And the mechanics are going to trip them up. So you have to beat all 12 waves of the Colosseum. You will get a guaranteed Echo Orb if you can beat Sol Heredit, which, by the way, when I found out Sol Heredit was going to be the Echo boss, I was just like, in a good way. That it was a crazy reveal. But yeah, you'll guarantee the Echo Orb if you can beat all 12 waves of the Colosseum, and then you'll have a chance to beat the Echo version of Sol Heredit, which is the only Echo boss listed at Grandmaster level difficulty. I'm not sure what to expect for this one, honestly, for the Grandmaster difficulty, because the fight in the main game with Sol Heredit in of itself is quite chaotic. There's a lot going on, so throwing more mechanics into the mix, I I think this is going to challenge even some really talented players. The rewards look insane though. So Soul Heredit will give you a chance at 2 echo items as well. The Sunlight Spear is a really strong two-handed weapon, you know, really strong stats just on its own defensively, offensively. The special attack is what it's all about though. So attacking with the Sunlight Spear will grant you a Sunlight stack. You can build up a maximum of 20 stacks and you'll use 7 stacks at a time for your special attack. And this is like a big AoE slam dealing damage in a 3x3 area around you. The neat thing about this is that the damage from this special attack is increased per point of prayer bonus. So my favorite echo item build is actually all centered around this item and this special attack. You know, just picking Valmore by itself now gives you a lot of prayer bonus that goes really well with this Sunlight Spear. You'll see the build for that soon. It's definitely worth the wait if it's not out already. This weapon and the special attack are kind of like the Khopesh, going to be really good for just getting through Slayer tasks really quick. You know, in the clip, it's demonstrated at Dust Devils, so just an example of where it can be used. The second reward here, I think, might actually just be the best echo item hands down. Like all round flexibility for all regions, the Sunlit Bracers. These increase the healing from all sources by 100%, so they double the healing. And I did flash up some examples in the video, so things like a Phoenix necklace. Redemption might be pretty crazy actually. You could flick that on, and I think at 99 prayer, Redemption heals about 24 HP. So that would be 48 HP healed using your prayer. We know we can get the prayer regeneration potion from the Herblore activity in Valmore, so with your prayer slowly ticking up, you could quite consistently use Redemption to just heal like 50 HP at a time. And there are loads of other options. You know, if you go down a magic route and you use Ancients, then you could just camp Blood Barrage and heal tons of HP. If you're going ranged and you've got Onyx Bolts, then you can heal from those as well. Or even something like the Blowpipe special attack or Sarah Godsword special attack, or using the Dogsword with this, you could pull off some really insane heals. And of course it goes the other way, all the way down to the very basics. You know, food healing double is crazy. We've got the Hunter's Food in Valmore now, so the Moonlight meat already heals quite a lot. It's the highest single piece healing food. Did that make sense? You know what I mean. So now that's going to be doubled anyway. Granted, both of these items, the Sunlight Spear and the Sunlit Bracers, they are locked behind, you know, a Grandmaster difficulty Soul Heredit. So I don't think that this is something that you're going to want to try and rush, because the amount of attempts it might take, you might just be better spent, you know, delving into your other regions a little bit. And that rounds up all of the echo bosses and items. I'm not going to try and rank them all, because there is a way you can build around pretty much all of the items, you know, and make them all quite exceptional. But I would say that the Drygore Blowpipe is probably intentionally the weakest reward. You know, it's a great mid-game item. It's going to make up for the desert's weakness, and that's what it's there for. And I would say that the Dogsword, being pretty reliant on a special attack relic, almost guarantees that we're going to see one, right? But yeah, coming back to the video I did on the official Old School channel, I think it's the most fun I had while making a video. I think, you know, Leagues is always quite an exciting time, and seeing all of those reveals got me really excited, and I had no one to talk to about it, other than Hootie, of course, the mastermind of all the reveals. I'm sure he's got everyone on the edge of their seats for the rest of these. You know, let me know in the comments what echo item you guys are most looking forward to playing around with or making a build around. I've got a Discord you can join if you want to come and join some of the Leagues 5 discussion. We're kind of sat there on the edge of our seats every day now for the reveals and just discussing what we all think about it. Keep your eyes peeled for the echo item build video I'm doing, so that'll be in the description when it's out, or you might see it if you're subscribed. And thank you all for watching. I can't wait for Leagues 5, but that is it from me today, so I will catch you all in the next one.